morning, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the last episode of Velodyne Lidar's WSS webinar miniseries. My name is Pamela Gauci, and I'll be your host today. This webinar miniseries has been a preview of the World Safety Summit taking place next week on Thursday, October 22nd. The summit is virtual and it's free, so be sure to register now because space is limited. Just go to velodynelidar.com and click the registration link at the top of our homepage. Now, joining me today is one of our keynote speakers at the summit, Oliver Cameron, co-founder and CEO at Voyage. Voyage is a company focused on enabling driverless transportation for the people who need it most. Their self-driving vehicles, equipped with Velodyne Alpha Prime sensors, provide residents of retirement communities with safe, autonomous transportation anywhere in their community. Whether residents face mobility restrictions or just want to take a ride, Voyage takes pride in getting all its passengers to their destination safely, efficiently, and affordably. But I'll let Oliver tell you himself about the great work Voyage is currently doing. So now I'd like to introduce today's featured guest, co-founder and CEO at Voyage, Oliver Cameron. Welcome, Oliver.
Thank you for having me, Pamela. This should be fun.
Yeah, now, Oliver, we don't have much time, so I'm going to dive right into the questions.
Sure.
To begin, can you tell us a little bit about Voyage and the work you're currently doing to bring self-driving cars to those who need it most?
For sure. So, as we know, self-driving cars are going to dramatically change lives for the better. This technology is going to prevent needless death. It's going to give independence back, to many millions who don't have it today. And what's really magical about Voyage is that we found a way to deliver these benefits and more in a very short period of time. And it's been a very customer-focused approach. We've decided that instead of going very, very broad initially with what is sure to be a controversial and transformative technology, we're going to start with a single customer. We're going to really build a product that makes sense for them. And that for us is senior citizens.
And why did Voyage see those retirement communities as the perfect first location for your driverless cars?
Yes, so, first and foremost, our approach to robo-taxis is fast because the roadway of retirement communities is just calmer. It's just slower, it's more predictable, and that gives us more faith that we can deliver a robo-taxi that goes door to door and provides real value to people's lives sooner than if we were to solve dense urban, environments. But what I would say that has evolved in our thinking is it's really less about the reduction of complexity. It's really more about the focus on a customer, because this technology has two paths it can take. One path is it's a technology for technology's sake, right? Where we all build the coolest of technologies, but it turns out it's too expensive and people don't want to use it. That's one path, and that's obviously a negative path. The other path, which is the preferred path, is you find a customer who has a desperate need for an improvement in their ability to move, right? And when you look at senior citizens and the amount of challenges that they face every day, whether driving their own car or using other services, it is just so clear that a robo-taxi will be adopted by this demographic perhaps faster than many other demographics. The way we think of this is that if you look at what made Facebook very successful in the very beginning, they started on college campuses with college students. And that made so much sense for Facebook because the product that they built solved a real problem for those particular customers. And it just took off overnight and they saturated that market before going downstream. If they'd have started with a 30-year-old not in a college campus, it may not have been so successful. And we think of senior citizens as our equivalent of that. They are going to be the power user of this technology. So we're going to start there before we expand to more demographics over time.
And can you tell us about some of the feedback that you've already received from the riders in those retirement communities?
For sure. So I've got some data. I'll share a quick anecdote though. So one of the challenges I would say we faced in the very beginning of the company's life is that there was this question mark over whether senior citizens would ever get in a robo-taxi, right? You look at the data for, technology adoption, smartphone adoption, and seniors tend to lag in those numbers. Now, what was very interesting is that we heard very early on that seniors didn't have too much concern with adopting a robo-taxi, and it kind of made us scratch our head. And we, of course, talked to these folks and understood why. And it turns out seniors have seen a tremendous amount of transportation change over their lifetimes, right? Look back to the 50s, 60s, 70s, and just think about all the transportation innovation that happened over those decades. Think about the birth of flight, right? Commercial flight, and how scary it probably was to get on a plane in the 1950s, 1960s, right? And when it comes to then a robo-taxi, well, it's just kind of incremental, right? It's not something that they're necessarily afraid of because they got on a plane in the 1950s and 60s. And so we learned very fast that these seniors that we work with are not necessarily afraid of a robo-taxi. And because they see the benefits more than other demographics, 600,000 seniors give up driving every year. 74% of seniors have cut back on their driving altogether during certain times of the day. So it's clear that they see the benefits of this technology. From a data-driven perspective, we've been running some large-scale surveys of the residents in our communities, and we learned a lot of interesting things. So, for example, 71% of the seniors in our communities would use a robo-taxi service today. Now, again, this is brand new technology, so those numbers just wowed me because nearly 3/4 of a population willing to use a technology that is a car that drives itself. That's crazy. And it's even more impressive when you compare it against the average American, which is 52%, only 52% of Americans would use a robo-taxi service today. So there is a clear benefit to partnering with seniors because they want this product more than non-seniors.
And now, how do you believe AV technology will continue to advance safety in communities in the future?
Yeah, well, firstly, I think it's worth noting that AV technology won't just impact level 4, it will impact and has begun to impact level 2 and driver assistance technologies. Those same advancements in object detection and prediction of actors in and around you, and sensor innovation, of course, all of that is going to have a very short-term impact, a positive impact in the L2 worlds. One thing that I think is very necessary for the growth of this industry going forward is that you have a thriving ecosystem in and around it. This industry, for better or worse, and I'd argue worse, has tended to have a built here mentality, right? That there's a notion that it all has to be built under the same roof, every technology. And I think what's really changed over the last 3, 4, 5 years is that you've just seen the rise of companies like Velodyne, but lots of others as well, who are providing a healthy ecosystem for companies to deploy these technologies much faster by not having to reinvent the wheel. We build the self-driving technology internally at Voyage. That's what we think we can be really good at. We don't think we're good at building sensors. We're not good at building cars and many other pieces of the puzzle. And that's where I see a lot of advancement in the future.
And Oliver, why has Velodyne been your LiDAR of choice, and how are you implementing Velodyne's LiDAR sensors into your current and next generation vehicles?
Yes, so when it comes to how we think about choosing sensor providers, forget LiDAR for a second, we have level 4 requirements. So we have to build a robo-taxi that does not assume a human is behind the wheel. And that is a very stringent, high standard upon which we have to hit. And over the years, again, as there has been inherently some slowdown in activity in L4, or rather not slowdown, delay, let's call it, right? That has, kind of transitioned some sensor providers to going all in on L2, right? Just pivoting entirely to the kind of L2 systems. And what's been great about Velodyne is you guys have kept that focus, strong focus on producing the sensors that are necessary for level 4, full level 4 driving. And that means high resolution. That means long range. That means the reliability requirements. And those are the things where I've seen Velodyne really stand out according to the crowd out there, and the reasons we use Velodyne sensors.
Great. And Oliver, what's next on the agenda for Voyage in the future?
Yes. So the first step for ourselves and this industry is to remove the need for safety drivers behind the wheel, and do so, of course, very, very, very safely, and exceed safety bars and thresholds. And the reason that is, of course, the most important step is that that becomes the moment you can build a business, right? We shouldn't forget that this technology is not purely for technology's sake. It is to generate revenue. It is to change people's lives. It's to improve people's lives. And as soon as you can remove the need for that safety driver, the economics start to become viable, and a service, a robo-taxi service at large scale can begin to follow. So that's really our next step. But all the while, we're going to be learning about our customer. We're going to be serving our customer and providing as excellent a robo-taxi service as we can.
Great, and a couple of final questions. Oliver, you are a featured keynote speaker at this year's World Safety Summit. Can you tell us a little bit about what you'll be talking about during the summit?
Sure. So, we at Voyage, we try and really be transparent about our technology and how we think about the market and how we think about, again, ultimately delivering a vehicle with no safety driver. And, I think it's important to do that because people are going to be trusting their lives to this technology. And to do so, you have to believe in the company, and you have to believe that the company knows what it's talking about. And again, what better way than just to show instead of just tell, right? So what I'll be covering primarily is our technology and how we've thought about constructing it, the progress we've made, some of the inner workings, some of the subtleties that perhaps aren't talked about as much. The machine learning side, the computer vision side gets a lot of attention, and I think rightly so, but there are a number of major challenges that don't involve either of those, particular technologies. And those are the challenges that, again, if you want to remove the need for a safety driver, you have to nail and have to do an incredibly good job of. So that's what we'll be spending during the time, a lot of our discussion.
Awesome. And one final question. What are you most looking forward to about this year's Safety Summit?
Yeah, I think it's great to see and hear, especially in a COVID world, from other leaders in autonomous vehicles and really understand their perspectives, because I don't know that this industry, it's talked about a lot, and there's a lot of misinformation out there about this industry. And, events like this are a forum to really get the ground truth out there. And every company's doing this slightly or significantly different, right? And it's a chance for, our company to get to learn from the different approaches of these different companies. So I'm most excited about that.
Awesome. And we're really excited too. Our 15 minutes is up, and we are unfortunately out of time. I do want to mention that this webinar episode has been recorded and will be available to view on Velodyne Lidar's YouTube channel. Now, if you have any questions, there's my contact information on your screen. So feel free to reach out with questions about AV technology, Velodyne's LiDAR sensors, or the 2020 World Safety Summit. I want to thank Oliver again for spending his morning with us. Thank you so much, Oliver.
No, thank you for having me.
And I want to thank our audience as well. And if you haven't already done so, please be sure to register for our free and virtual World Safety Summit taking place next Thursday, October 22nd. You can learn more about the fantastic lineup of speakers and panels on this year's agenda by visiting VelodyneLidar.com and clicking on the link at the top of our homepage. Again, thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at the summit next week.
Excellent. Thank you.